Hi, how is everyone? This is Henry Knight, the DM for Playerole, and this is DM Talk. Welcome on our new night. Well, on our new time. The end of Creatures of the Realm Season 1 was over last Friday. So we're going to continue with DM Talk at 10:45 to 11:45. 1 hour if we can go over, depending on what we talk about. Hot topics of the night of Dungeons and Dragons. Well, tonight our hot topic is actions. How do you see actions in your campaign? Well, before we get into it, how was everyone's New Year's? Was everyone New Year's great? Mine was good. Hopefully yours was great. We're in the new year. Fresh year, and we have a lot of new content coming up on Playerole tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central. We have continuation of Campaign 2, Episode 12. Tomorrow night, join us for Playerole, and tonight, DM Talk. Let's begin. I mentioned 2 seconds ago actions. What are actions in your characters? What do they mean for Dungeons and Dragons? Well, they mean a lot. It's an important aspect of the game. Without actions, you really can't do anything. So I was on social media and I went on this forum, and one of the DMs was upset that the players were getting so many actions, multiple actions. Well, what do you think of actions? Do you are opposed to them? What is too much? As a fighter, you have action surge, you have different actions that you'll get as you go up in level. What do you your extra attacks and so forth? What do you think of all that? Do you agree on bonus actions? What is it? Do you love the old school games like I do back in the day, where you only have a certain amount of attacks and action? You got to remember, an action is different from an attack action. So those are two different things you have to realize as you make your character, as they're in the gameplay. So with that being said, you got to remember that actions, you get your extra attack as a fighter at level 5. So you get your extra attack at level 5. So how many attacks, actions, all that comes together when you make your character. So having 5 attacks, 8 attacks, all that type of stuff, and you have action surge for a fighter, that's something that is a key ability, a key thing for that character class. Well, anyways, I was telling you about this forum I was on, this Dungeons and Dragons forum, and they were talking about, well, these players are getting so many attacks, so many attack actions, so many, and he was upset. Can you imagine playing a subclass where you have a multitude of attacks in a round? And what are you going to do? What are you going to do when that happens? Oh wait, you have your actions, your bonus action. When is it too much? Will it slow down the game? They were talking about slowing down the game, slowing down combat. We all know that in the game of Dungeons and Dragons, we all sit down and any DM can use, I talked about time management last episode. Tonight's episode, actions. And that encompasses attack action, extra attacks. That's all in the spectrum. Because any way you want to look at it, when you attack, that's still an action. You are attacking. Okay, you are taking a turn to pull your sword out and attack. That is it. But in the game terms, there is a difference. And the difference is, well, most people don't know this, because in your game, when you can say, well, the fighter has an action surge, Want to blow an action for it gives me another action. And under that character template and even your character sheet, it'll tell you an action. You know, what to do, what encompasses an action. So those are the things you have to think about. But in general, when you're playing a character class and you have all these things that you can do, does that slow down combat? You bet it does. Back in the old days, you pulled out a spell, you used a spell, that was it, you're done. Over here, you have your main action, you do a cantrip, and then you have your bonus action. You know, you can't have a spell and then in your cantrip, you can't have both. You have to pick a cantrip and then do something else with it. But then again, there's other, in the game mechanics of it, there's other feats that you can get that gives you that more stuff to do, like action surge. You take an action surge, what does that give you? More stuff. Is that right? Is that right for your campaign? Do you want these characters, these classes to be strong, to be superpower, to be where they have multiple attacks in one round? Is that great for you and your campaign? Those are the things you have to think about when you run a game. When you have your session 0, when you talk to your party, say, hey, you know, maybe we want to tone it down a bit. This is my opinion. In my opinion, very simple. In the game, you talk to your players. You talk to your players, communication is the key, and say, hey, look, we're not going to work with a bonus action. You can do what you want, because ultimately it's your table, you're the DM. And as long as everybody agrees, you're good. Doesn't matter what the game mechanics and the rules say. It is your table, as long as everybody's in agreement with it. And when you play, you say, hey guys, remember, this is what we do. A lot of times people are like, well, I have my subclass features, I have my extra attacks. In game, combat begins, you roll for initiative, it's your turn. What am I gonna do? Oh wait, I've got 3 actions. What are you gonna do? I got my bonus. Well, I want to use a cantrip. Then after the cantrip, I'm going to use a bonus action. Okay, let's say you're not a mage. Say you're a fighter. First action, there's a beast. I'm going to run up to him and I want to hit him with my sword. Okay, so you run up to the beast, you hit him with your sword. Then what? My bonus action, I'm going to do this. Whatever you're going to do. So now you're hitting your creature, you're hitting your target as hard as can be, and you're attacking, you're advancing, you're doing what it takes. But remember, the character class sheet, your character sheets has, dash, disengage, hide, search, all the things you can do in an action. Everything you can do in an action. There's no excuse. You should have it right there. Everything you can do as an action. Okay. So how much is too much? So after you're done with your action, then your bonus action, and then I'm going to blow an action surge. Fighters only get 2. Depending. Yeah, only get 2. Or, yeah, so here's what you have to understand. When you have your action surges and you use them, you do another action, you get more attacks, then what? Does that make it boring? So as a player, you're responsible to say, let's go. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to attack. I'm going to bonus action surge. So you have 2 slots for your action surge. You blow them, you can't use them anymore until you rest. Simple as pie, right? We all know that. So how much is too much after all that? So let's say you have a player that takes his time or her time and they want to be efficient. Nothing wrong with being efficient. They go through everything. Oh, I'm going to attack. I'm going to disengage. I'm going to use a bonus action. Let's say you don't have a bonus action. There's, characters or classes who don't have a bonus action. So let's say you're going to disengage. You're going to do everything you're going to do. And then you're hesitating. So what happens then? So according to this forum I was on, the DM was mad because the players were just so much. You have the sorcerer and the wizard. Let's go to the sorcerer. You have your meta magic. You have your twin magic. You have so much that you can do. And then a fighter, depending on which subclass you pick, you've got so much. Imagine the Echo Knight. Oh, I'm talking about actions. Thank you for your comment. I'm talking about actions. I'm talking about how that works in the game, in your scenario, in a campaign, in combat in general. How much is too much? I went on this forum and they're talking about the DM was upset about actions, was upset that the players were basically attacking, doing their thing, and it was too much. He'd rather have one limited actions. He wants only 1 or 2 actions. That's it, period. Doesn't want no bonus. He wants to take bonus actions out of the scenario. I wanted to know what you guys think about that. What do you think about taking a bonus action, taking that completely out of the scenario? What do you guys think about that? Personally, for me, in my games, if you are running a game and a player, as long as they don't hesitate, as long as they know their character, they know what they're playing, and if you're playing a sorcerer, a wizard, the DM was not new. He was just upset. He wanted to dumb it down a bit, or he wanted to nerf it to the point where you have limited actions, period. Doesn't want a bonus action, only wants 1 or 2 tops. And his players were getting mad, and he was getting mad, so they had a big argument at the table. And I just wanted to bring this up as one of the topics. What do you guys think about that? Because the point is that that guts a lot of classes. Yeah, you're right. A lot of classes need those things. They need them. They need those actions. They need those bonus actions. The fighter, for example, action surge, you need that. The monk, all those classes that you have in the game are important to have certain abilities. For example, a rogue on a bonus action, he can do his special abilities. And most classes have special abilities that they use for a bonus action. And if you take that away, you're gonna have to rewrite the game or pretty much dumb it down, nerf it. And a lot of people don't like that. Personally, I don't like it, but I wanted to bring it up because I think it would be a fun topic to talk about. Yeah, nice comment. Thank you very much. It does gut a lot of classes. And a rogue, for example, I love playing rogues. So if you have a rogue, you're not going to be able to use it. So I don't understand what scenario he wanted. And if the group, again, yes. If the group wants a certain aspect in the game left in, then leave it in. If you're, like I said, no matter what people think, I believe that in a game, if we all agree, if I agree and the players agree to change something, then change it. But to take out a bonus action, to take out these things in a game, it'll dumb down the game. It'll disrupt a lot of things that classes can do. And once you have that disruption, it destroys the integrity of the game. That's just my opinion. But it doesn't mean that the guy is completely wrong. I'm not going to have an argument with someone else and say, hey, man, you're completely wrong. I mean, but if the group at his table agrees, then fine. But it's not going to be the same. At least I think so. And I'm, by your comments, you agree also. Actions are very important, and especially bonus actions. So if you have player one, and this is issue I have, if player one is ready to do his actions, to say, okay, I'm going, it's my turn. So John, player one, is going to make it an attack roll. Do it as quickly as possible, go to the next player, and go from there. That's how you speed up combat. Initiative, for example. What I like doing sometimes, I love his plan was basically, if there was a disagreement at the table, then his plan would be keep it together and then just speed up action, speed up your character, whatever you're going to say. If it's your turn in combat, go ahead and speed that up. I was just going to say the way I speed up combat would be, and I love doing this, is group initiative. I love group initiative. Although at higher levels, group initiative doesn't work with certain abilities that the classes have. But it is cool, it does speed up combat. Again, it's all communication between DM and your players. I'm a big believer in that. You never want to leave out the players in anything that you do, because when you do that, it disrupts the game flow, the integrity of the game. It doesn't matter what you're playing. If here's another one. Yeah, absolutely. It all depends on what the flow of the game is. So if player one and player two, if one person is slow in saying what he's going to do or she's going to do, then the next player has to speed up the flow of the game. Everybody's really has to come up with what they're going to do before they do it. Strategy is, I can understand the first round, you're not going to understand strategy very much. You're going to think about the scenario, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with thinking about what you're going to do. But if it's your turn and you're the first guy going, just attack. Oh wait, I'm up against a dragon. I'm up against a lich, a velociraptor, whatever you're up against. Just look at the scenario. Okay, I'm attack, disengage. There you go. I want to go ahead and look at the sheet, at the abilities of the subclass, of the class itself. Get ready, be ready. That's how you move things. That's how you go. By the fourth player, if the fourth player is like, well, I don't know. And I think after level 8, things start to expand. You have so much that you can do that I think it slows down combat. But there are ways to really, no matter how lengthy your character is, a group action, yeah, group action is very cool. I do like that. I'm a big believer in that. But I was saying is maybe, just maybe, by speeding up combat, you know what you're playing, number one. You know exactly, you got to know your character. And as a player, you know your character. If I'm playing a fighter, you know what a fighter does. You know you have action surges. You know you're a beast at attacking. Then depending on what subclass that you pick. If you pick an Echo Knight, get ready. Be prepared. You have that Echo. Understand what it does. How you use the character. The class. So at that point, your next player is playing a sorcerer. Okay, what type of sorcerer? Those are the things you have to understand as a player, not just DM, but as a player. So the players, when they know their character and it's time to attack or whatever they're doing, it's your turn, then be ready. Be ready. Preparation and flow. And combat will move. You can change things all you want. You can be there 100% of the time and try to move combat. And a lot of times, nothing is moved because they hesitate. Oh wait, I get 2 extra attacks and I'm level 18. I get 2 extra attacks. Okay, but if you're playing a character that's electronic, for example, it's on D&D Beyond, everything should be there for you. And if you're playing pen and paper, you should have written how many actions, how many attacks you get. Okay, so if I get 2 extra attacks at a level 11, and I'm level 18, you should know. You should know what you have. Write it down on the sheet. That way you'll be ready. Okay, I've got 4 attacks. I've got 2 attacks. Those, if you do that, things will move. Okay, go. Let's see. There's a dragon. I want to try to do hold monster. Okay, what do I need to do to hold monster? Does a spell have components? Those are the things you have to look at it. I ran a campaign. I ran a campaign up to level 20, and it was crazy. It was crazy. My buddy, one of my players, he had a list of magic, of spells that he was doing, but he was quick. He was quick in what he used, what he wanted to use. So by the time we got to him, he was quick. And if he was the first guy in initiative, on the fly, he would say, okay, I'm holding my action, or I'm doing whatever. He would be ready. But yeah, it sounds like it. Look, guys, if you're playing a game, and it doesn't have to be D&D. If you're learning a game and you're having fun, that's the key. Having fun and learning the game. But like I said before, I had a game where everybody was went from level 1, went to level 20, and they had a blast. They had a blast. But running a game that's a level is very high, it's a beast. It's a monster, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Let me tell you, out of all the games, running a level 20 game is a monster, and it's great. I love it. I love the challenge. I love the fact that these players have met their gods almost, and the power base that they have, the abilities are amazing, and to see them just one by one is great. I love it. Now, going back to that D&D forum, that chat group that I was on, let me tell you, everybody, they were trying to give the DM just advice, no attacks, nothing like that. They were giving him advice, saying, hey, look, as far as actions are concerned, you cannot take a bonus action away. You take that away, it ruins the class, just like you pointed out. And I appreciate your comment. That's awesome. In a game in general, and we're going to talk more about the game mechanics, because I think that's where people have a pull. They can say, well, you know, game mechanics, they slow down things, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it around. Well, there's nothing wrong with turning it around if you know that he wanted a heavy homebrew. Hey, homebrew, nothing wrong with homebrew. I love homebrew games. In my campaign 2, is homebrew. You know, my world, my realm, Dominulus, I love it. But it's all what you and your table want. Now, can you skip out on a rule every now and then? Absolutely. Because you don't want arguments at the table. And especially when you're looking at actions and bonus actions. I'm not touching that. You can homebrew all you want, but I'm not touching that, because like I said earlier, you're going to ruin that integrity of the character class, and you don't want to do that. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about something a little bit lighter than taking away bonus actions. What do you guys think of ways to speed up combat? I know I talked about group initiative. What do you guys think about that? You guys like group initiative, or do you want the individual role? Personally, I did both, and I had tabs with everybody's name on it, their initiative number. I have a clipboard. Oh, that's cool. Drink a potion for half the healing. Okay. All right. All right. That sounds cool. Do your players like that? I mean, are they on board? All right, I'll continue and I'll wait for your answer. So, what do you guys think of group initiative? Let me know in the comments. I have little tabs that write everybody's name, their armor class, all that type of stuff. And let me tell you, it's a lot of fun, but can also be cumbersome, because when you have, they love it. Oh, awesome. I might do that sometime. I might take your homebrew idea. I like that. That's cool. Thank you. So initiative. I had initiative on a little board or a clipboard, and I have everybody's name, their armor class, and then their initiative number. I also have little tabs that I bought. And I made pieces of paper, whatever. However you want to do initiative, however it works for you, do it. Because initiative, that's part of speeding up combat. Do you want to use individual initiative? Do you want to use group initiative? Group-based initiative? To me, that's faster. Way faster. You have your enemy and you have your players as a group, both of them. Whoever rolls first goes first. Simple. Instead of player 1, player 2, player 3, 4, and 5, and then go. What are other ways that you guys think can speed up combat? I just said earlier, players have to know what they're doing. You have your character sheet. Be ready. Characters being ready. Players being ready. Secondly, that's part of preparation. Go. I'm rolling. I'm doing. I'm not saying don't role play and have fun and just Spelljammer ship combat. So it's great for. Oh, cool. Yeah, I love Spelljammer. For my campaign 1 for Playerole, I use some of Spelljammer's ships and so forth. I had a sci-fi fantasy scenario, so yeah, I love that. That's cool. But anyways, I was saying that, and he brought up Spelljammer, and Spelljammer, again, in your games you can use whatever you want, character-wise, story-wise, and whatever you bring in combat. Make sure that everybody does their part, and the DM does their part as well, because if you do that, it speeds up combat. No, you're not changing the integrity of the game. You know D&D. You know that combat can be slow, and it is sometimes. Why? Because of scenarios. Let's say line of sight, for example, is the biggest issue. If you're doing a theater of the mind, per se, theater of the mind, you have your medium range, long range, and short range. What I tell my players is, when you're in combat, just say, all right, I'm at long range. I'll describe the scenario as best to my ability, and then they describe what they're doing, and I am at long range position when you're in combat in theater of the mind. That's great. As long as you're describing and people know what they're doing and saying, and the description's there, you're fine. Here's where the problem lies. Line of sight. When you're describing, you should describe, okay, there is a car flipped over, there's a column in the way, line of sight isn't, the target isn't visible too much. So you're going to have to get closer. At long range, I want to move up to medium range. When you're doing a theater of the mind, you have to be descriptive as possible. Nothing wrong with that. As long as you're descriptive, you're good. So now you have second thing. If you're playing with miniatures, and I love this, Warhammer does this a lot, where you have a tape measure or a string where you attach, well, just pull it out, the string, line of sight, right there, from the top of the miniature to the other top of the miniature, and make sure that everything is flushed. Everything is completely not touching any debris, any part of the map, wherever you have on the map. So if you have columns, if they're in a room, a tavern, or whatnot, if something is touching that string in any way, it's going to be, 25% sight, 30%, 40%, whatever it is. It all depends on your line of sight. So, and all that is important in combat, and that can slow down combat, and you could really give it a good look. Oh, the miniature, I can see his top of the head, I can see, all right, there you go. You can eye it as well. And once you do that, it's great. That's one of the things that I love about miniature combat, and you use it in Dungeons and Dragons. It's great to have it. It's a visual. And you can see the miniature. I'm facing the target. I'm facing the target right in front of me. So now I'm going to go ahead and attack. But in Theater of the Mind, Theater of the Mind is awesome. I'm a big advocator of Theater of the Mind. I love it. Yeah, but the encounters are very, very difficult sometimes, because one of the main problems people have with Theater of the Mind is they can see it, but in combat, if you're not descriptive, then, like I said, what helps for me and the players that I have in my campaign, if I say they're in long range, medium range, or short range. If they're in short range, they're going to say fisticuffs. I want to go. If they're in long range, then they can say, okay, if you have a ranger, if you have someone with a long range attack, go ahead and do so. So those are the things that can make or break your combat. Theater of the Mind to me is my favorite because it brings out a lot of energy, a lot of description. Old school role playing didn't have miniatures and all the stuff that we have now. They did in a sense, but not like it is now, where you have this awesome, you have maps, all these programs that can build your scenario, and you have houses and beautiful miniatures that can dress up your combat, to dress up the table. And then reduce AC and heal encounter. Yep. Passive perception initiative. Yeah. Yes. That's why I like Matt Colville's way to have low AC, and you have your hit points that are high, but you have low AC. That way everybody can just go hit. You're not, oh, I missed. Everybody gets a nice little nick. I love that. And passive perception initiative is fantastic. I like that. Yeah, speeding up combat's a big deal. I mean, it is the energy in your game. It is that steam engine. In combat, you could have a descriptive, beautiful story, but it all comes down to combat. Just got, it's Dungeons and Dragons. G.I. Joes, man, that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, we used a lot of dice. We use extra dice, and we just said, okay, this is a dragon, or this is zombies. And to this day, if we don't have enough minis, yeah, if they fit, they fit. Yeah, if we don't have enough minis, we put them out there. It makes it fun. Makes it a lot of fun. When you have, back then in our day, we had pencil and paper. We didn't have all this technology. And don't get me wrong, having the technology is awesome. But when you have pen and paper, and you know what I'm talking about, guys, it really brings a lot of energy to the game. It brings a lot of excitement, because a lot of times you're like, you were high level, but you were, like you said, you were level 18. You're a level 5, level 6 at the most, and you had fun. But even at those levels, it was deadly. It was deadly. You fell apart quickly. Now, let me ask you this. What do you guys think of when you roll for your abilities? Do you roll for your abilities each one? Or do you use point allocation? Because I went on this other forum and they were talking about that, and they were giving people crap on point allocation. Now, these are old school gamers. And you know what? I'm an advocate of both. I like rolling for each one, for your abilities, your ability score. And I also like point allocation. I think point allocation is cool. Yes. Yeah, trapper keeper full of papers and pencils. Yes. Yes. Awesome. I'm nuts. I have paper, I have digital, I have the copy of the character on D&D Beyond. I've got it printed out. I've got my creatures handwritten. You know, some of them are homebrew, some of them are not. So there's a lot of stuff that I have on there. Yes, that's cool. Yeah, doing both is fantastic. Doing both is great. When you have your group doing digital, using digital and then paper, it's great. A lot of guys do that. I have a guy who refuses to use digital. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, to each his own. You don't want to use digital, fine. It keeps you sharp. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're playing a barbarian, it's a lot of number crunching. But it's cool. Don't worry about it. As long as you like it, and that's the number one thing. I remember, because I try to do each scenario of combat. I try to, something different. I try to have a map that I draw, or I have minis out there, I have houses and just things on the board. Oh yeah, yeah, yep, yep. Yeah, hey, you know what? There's going to be a lot of arguments at your table. Don't get me wrong, it does happen. But if there is an argument about to brew, get up and walk away from the table. That's the best thing you should do. Don't and it is hysterical to do that. Numbers are a big deal. Are a big deal. And what do I mean by that? You just brought it up. Numbers are, if you're looking at your game in general, if you have a roll that somebody said rolled, right, and then the roll was incorrect, or the game mechanics, you just didn't do it right as a DM, you just kind of went over it, you skimmed over it, there's an argument there. Leave the table, because then you have fun. You want to keep that fun. You gotta keep that fun in the game. I don't care what rule you break, what number is incorrect. If you mess up as a DM and the player messes up a DM and you guys are arguing at the table, both of you are wrong. Get up, get a little break, talk it over, and come back. Because you don't want that negativity at the table. And that's with anything, any game. And when you have a game mechanic that should be in there in the game, and you just throw it out as a DM or forget about it, nobody's perfect. People forget about it. You know, here's another one. I know I'm jumping on different topics. but everybody's bringing up stuff, and I'm kind of getting excited. So I thank you for your comments. Here's one where everybody's like, make a perception check, or you have somebody grappled and you know it should be strength or athletics. You can use both. In the game rules, when you have somebody grappled, right, it's an athletics roll. It can be a strength roll too. You can use both. There's nothing wrong with that. Or what I like doing is like, okay, whichever is higher. Yes. I do the same thing. If I mess up on a rule, let it fly, and then we'll correct the next game. Yeah, I've done that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the biggest thing that people have problems, that DMs have, and I include myself in this, is sometimes when you are looking at, your abilities, you have strength, you have charisma, wisdom, all that stuff. Then what save do you make? Make a wisdom save, make a dex save, and you mess up and it's not the proper save because you weren't thinking right, or your brain got mangled up, or you were looking at something else. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. Nothing wrong with that. Like you said, you mess up, let it go, and correct it next game. And if you mess up on an ability check, here's another one. And me and my buddy at work, we talk about this all the time. Perception, you have your passive perception. There's a difference, okay? You still make the roll and your passive perception is exceedingly high. Let's say your passive perception is a 22, right? And you're in a room. You're in this cathedral. And in the cathedral, behind the altar, there's a dagger. Underneath the dagger, there's that handkerchief, the evidence that you needed to find. Correct. Strength itself is just the innate ability utilized by athletics. Correct. So you have your passive perception, and then you have your perception roll. So now, how do you use that? Well, you have your passive perception. You're a beast. You have a higher than 20. You look around, your passive perception. Do you find the handkerchief behind the altar, underneath the dagger? Do you find it? Passive perception will give you, I see something. I think something's over there. Even though, do you roll? Do you just let it fly? What I would do is still roll. Okay, you take your passive perception, you still roll because you're looking for a specific item. Specific, a handkerchief, really small, hidden. But even though if you have the highest passive perception, it's okay for you to still roll. Nothing wrong with that. You could roll for an investigation roll as well. There you go. But if you have a passive perception that's exceedingly high, how do you work that out? Investigation is you're investigating clues, maybe blood on the floor, stuff like that. You're looking for a specific event on the ground and stuff like that. So as a DM, you have to discern what you use under that ability. Like you said, strength and then athletics. Athletics utilizes that ability. Perception rolls a skill that involves noticing details in the environment. Correct. So you have your details. Like I said before, you have your passive perception. You notice something in that location. You roll your investigation roll. You notice something. Accordingly, there's blood spilled on the ground, there's a body, you see an arm, stuff like that. You see events, you see it open up before you. You see, okay, this person was murdered here. This person the fingerprints were on the handkerchief. So you find the handkerchief behind the altar. Those are the things you have to look at. And you could say, well, you could argue with me and say, well, if this is used, then why couldn't you have used perception as a whole and forget investigation? Because sometimes you don't have that investigation, and you're still going to have to use that ability. Make a perception roll. Well, I don't have investigation, Henry. What do? Roll perception. You don't have investigation? Roll your perception. You don't have strength? You have strength, but athletics is higher? On a grapple? Roll your athletics. The opposite individual is going to roll strength. A strength for strength. Athletics is how you maneuver, like you said so well, how well you utilize things. So if somebody's grappling you around the neck, you're going to use athletics to try to get out of that grapple. Strength as a whole, you have your arms around the individual. But what if you don't have athletics? What if you don't have that at all? You have acrobatics. Acrobatics, mind you, is very different. Do flips, stuff like that. How well somebody drops something on the ground, you move towards it, stuff like that. Athletics, it's argued how you say what you say and what you do. Athletics, acrobatics, strength, athletics, those two things. Strength, like you said, is the prime ability. If you don't have it, those things, those abilities, and you only have strength, let's say you don't have athletics and you just roll strength. There's nothing wrong with it. Roll strength because you don't have it. Roll a dex save to get out of the way. Somebody's punching, you want to get out of the way. Roll dex, a trap sprung, daggers fly, you move out of the way, you roll dexterity. That's a dex save, strength save. You know, you're doing an arm wrestling, you do a strength ability roll. I mean, you do that. You're pushing in a door, stuff like that. I mean, it all depends on how you use it in your game. And there's nothing wrong with saying, well, if you botch up what you're using, as long as the intent and people and your players know what you're intending to do, and so forth. But if the player doesn't have that ability, then they roll the athletics, for example. That's what you do. Period. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Is it? Am I wrong with that? I mean, if you don't have anything under perception, if you have a crappy number, and then underneath it, you have investigation, you have all these things, and if you don't have investigation, then roll your perception. But then you have to look at your passive perception as well. You see the details. And that's important in your game if you're going to have a mystery or if you're looking for something. And that's the thing with higher character levels. Their perception, their passive perception gets exceedingly high. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just because they have a passive perception of over 20 doesn't mean they still don't get to roll. They still roll. You can do the math all you want. And at the end of the day, they still have to roll, period. Sometimes they can get away with, okay, you have a passive perception of a 22, you have an 18. Player one saw it first, saw the details, saw there was something wrong with the altar. Something alluded him to the altar. So the player moves over to the altar and tells everybody that. Nothing wrong with that. But he still makes a roll. he puts his hand over the top of the altar and he looks around, and finally he sees a handkerchief. There's work still has to be done. Yes. Yes. There you go. There you go. Both of you guys are right. 100%. There you go. That's one of the guys, two of the guys were saying a high wisdom, low intelligence character might notice the part of the floor made from a slightly darker wood, but wouldn't think anything of it. Then he says, if the DM asks for a perception check, then tells the player part of the floor is darker, then the player will attach a higher significance that the character wouldn't. Good. And then even extremely high passive perception does not give you X-ray vision, but perhaps a compromise might be allowing a roll at advantage. Fantastic. Yeah, those are the things that intensify your game, will add to your game, because you don't want to just stay, hey, look, this is what's happening. Be as descriptive. Description is the key, guys, as a DM. And you guys are DMs, you guys know. Description. We get tired, we get exhausted, whatever, and the altar has a white cloth over the altar. There's a chalice on the altar. It's broken. There's glass on the outskirt, on the outer portion of the altar. There's blood stains on the white sheet. You see an arm on the outside of the altar. You don't see a body, but you see an arm. The hand is open. But it's holding something. What do? Stuff like that. You have to be descriptive as possible. If you're not descriptive, then the game starts falling apart. And then that's where the rules come in. Then that's where the players are like, oh, I want to make an investigation roll. I want to start doing all these things. But the thing is, oh, great question. What do I think the hardest class is and why? The hardest class to me, I think a barbarian. It's number crunchy. And I don't like slow characters. What I mean at higher levels, when you have your rage and you start doing different things with him, it starts to get slow. I don't like that at all. I like things that are like, my favorite class is a fighter, a paladin. Those are two of my favorite classes right there. Great question. The barbarian, I'm not too fond of the barbarian. Rage is amazing, but no, I don't like it. I don't like the what comes with the barbarian. I do like the fighter, and I do love the paladin. I do love divine smite and stuff like that. At higher levels, I love both of those characters, those classes. What about you? What do you think is a harder class, and why? Want to wait for your answer? If not, then I'll continue. I'll go a little bit longer. Classes are, I love rogues. I love paladins, fighters. I love the subclasses. I know a buddy of mine is a huge Ranger fan. In a sense, Rangers are very cool. There's a lot of subclasses under the Ranger bracket that's really cool. I don't like the changes they made in the 2024 version, but everybody has their own opinion on that. What about you? What do you think is the hardest class? That's a great question. And why? The Sorcerer and Wizard, Mage classes are fun. I love playing Magic as well. But you have to know them. You have to know how to use a spell. You got to know your components in the spell. You got to be ready with all that. Oh, wow. Hang on a second. Let me... All right. Let me read here. Yep. Sorcerers. Yeah, the sorcerer. Oh, okay, I gotcha. Yeah, I have a buddy of mine who loves playing Magic, and he's playing a Ranger in this campaign. I don't think he's too happy, but he's having fun with it. Magic is cool. It all depends on you. I mean, how you respond to that class. I mean, if you're in a campaign and you pick the wrong class, ooh man, that's a good way to die fast. But that's a good topic for next episode, is what happens if you pick a wrong class. If you in a campaign and you're like, I'm playing the sorcerer. Never played Magic before. This is my first Magic character class, and I'm playing them. And now you're stuck. And now you're like, ugh. So the wizard is the most difficult one. I don't like barbarians. I don't mind magic. I don't mind wizards or sorcerers, but there is a lot to them. In the in the barbarian, what I mean by number crunchy, later on he gets number crunchy, and the class is very difficult later on. I mean, I don't like that. I don't mean the numbers. I mean just the fact that I don't want to deal with all that. I don't. I just want to play the character, role play the character, and do that. Now, Magic is cool. You know, I don't mind it. But Sorcerer, yeah. I've played a wizard, and I killed two of my friends in the campaign. It was, and I mentioned this before, I was exuberant. I was headstrong. I wasn't playing very smart, and I didn't think of the range and so forth, and the other party members happened to be in the area, and I cast a fireball, and they missed a deck save, and they pretty much got roasted. They weren't too happy. So, but yeah. He said there depends on the player. Someone with limited tactical math skills or low ability to grasp rules will have a tough time with the spellcaster. Someone very quiet and introverted might not do well with a bard. A player with a non-violent disposition could have a hard time with a head basher slasher. I usually tell players to imagine in what way they want to be awesome in a fantasy world and work backwards from that to select what they want to play. That is awesome. Anime 5, that's fantastic. Question and answer. That's great. Playing a spellcaster is, to me, is very important, and especially in the game, because again, I mentioned earlier, components, doing a spell, and how it works in the game. A lot of times you got to stay in the back and produce a spell, and sometimes they're not fun to play. So you think the Bard is the easiest to play? Kachao says, I think Bard is the easiest to play personally. Grapple or jump high, slam you down till you don't move anymore. Right, bonk till you don't have a pulse. Ha! I got it. Bards are cool. Bards are very cool. A Bard, I haven't played one yet. But I have a couple people in my campaign who've played Bards, and they're very cool. They like them. Bard is very advantageous to your game, and they're fun to play. What about one last thing before we go? I don't want to go too long, but I will tell you all that in a game, and I know we talked about actions in the beginning of the game, the beginning of the talk, and this all encompasses rules. This all encompasses player management, the DM, how the DM expresses himself, how he delivers his story to the players. That is cool. Anime 5 says, I'd play a bard for no reason and to line up a list of insults for vicious mockery. That is awesome. So anyways, in end, I'd like to say that everything encompasses one thing, maybe two. Number one, the delivery system is important as a DM. The delivery, the communication to him and his players. Combat, the rules are important. How they play in combat, how they play for the players and the DM alike, all DMs. And the way you deliver a scenario, deliver a story is very important. Be clear, be concise, be fair. Yes, be fair. Be honest with your roles, and ultimately have fun. That's the number one thing in any game is have fun. But also, man, if you mess up, like you guys said so eloquently, if you mess up on a rule, and everybody has, it's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Just move on and deal with it later. And as long as your party's having fun, A-okay. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to sit here and say, well, let's go over page 88 of the player's manual, and let's see what Circle of the Stars do. Guys, thank you. Exactly, put a world under their feet, not just a grid of squares. Absolutely. Those are the things that make Dungeons and Dragons, any role-playing game, fun. Create, have fun, and enjoy the game. That's what we're here to do, right? On both sides of the aisle, the DM and the players. But if there is something in the rules that nobody's understanding, then out of game, talk about it. Say, okay, this is how it works. Like I said in the beginning, and it was kind of forced because I read it in a forum where the DM was upset with his players, but then again, they all did not mention, or the DM did not mention that he was new or anything like that. But all in all, in end, if you're new as a DM and if you're new as a player, just remember the number one rule is have fun. Number one rule. And remember that when you're playing a game, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons, Vampire the Masquerade, Warhammer, wherever game you're playing, have fun and enjoy it, because it separates reality and you're in fantasy world. You're in a space domain. You're on a ship anywhere in the world, in a realm far away. You're in another place, another time. You're in the world of fantasy. You're in the world of sci-fi. You're in whatever world that you create as a DM. I love you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central. And DM Talk is going to start early, a little earlier, on Friday nights, 10:45 p.m. Central. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Join us for Campaign 2, Episode 12. Yes, Happy New Year. Thank you very much. It's always wonderful to see you guys. Thank you for your comments. And like I said, I'm not always perfect, but I'm here to take advice from you guys and everyone else. We're here together. We're here to have fun. Love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.